Luke. Yes. So we just read a book about Martin Luther King Jr., which was a biography. Now we're going to write a paper that is a biography. So what is a biography? What is this paper going to be? Is it going to be a make-believe fairy tale? What is it going to be? What is a biography? Do we have a specific person that we are writing about? Are we going to make a person up? Raise your hand and I will call. What? M. Do we make up the characters in our biography, or is it about a real person? And who in this case are we writing about? Jonathan.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King Jr. Was he a real person?
Yes.
Yes. You have a book in front of you that we just finished reading that has lots of fairy tales, folklore, and fables in it.
No.
What's inside the book that is significant to a biography? If you open up the book of Martin Luther King, we have talked about this in great length, so everyone's hands should be up. What is in a biography that you are not going to find in a book, a narrative like Charlotte's Web? Grayson.
Dates.
Dates. Yes. Why are there no dates in Charlotte's Web? Christian.
Because it's not a real story.
Not a real
Happened.
Yes, it's make-believe. Yes, James.
There's no facts.
There's no facts. It's fiction. It's make-believe. Ella.
Martin Luther King Jr. was real events that actually happened.
That's right. He was a real person, and the events in this book actually happened. Now, the book, some of the things that happened in Charlotte's Web might be based on the author E.B. White's life. He may have experienced some of this, but he wrote it in a fictional way, right? It's not real. It's a story. So, with that said, you need to pay close attention to what you're writing about Martin Luther King Jr. in your paper, because it is a real person. The events actually happened. So do you want to make sure you get the dates right?
Yes.
Names right?
Yes.
Events right? Yes. Because you are writing about a real person experiencing real events. So there might be a little more responsibility on you when you're writing this paper. You can't make things up. You can't use your well, you can use your imagination, but you still have to be very factual. So when you're looking up something that you want to write about, the first thing you should do is look at the date. So it makes it very easy to do research about it. Because he's a very well-known person that did a lot of amazing things, so he's got so much information. So that's going to make it easy. What makes it hard for you is that you have to decide what you want to write about. It's like Mrs. Reed going into a chocolate candy shop and deciding which chocolate I want. It's very hard.
I would take all.
Me too. So sometimes having a lot of choices can make things a little difficult. So your job is to try to decide what it is that you want to write about. So we're going to do a little reviewing about, this is going to be a big paper like our first paper with animals. So you are going to have 3 paragraphs in your body. You're going to have a opening paragraph and a conclusion. So our last thank you was a very easy 7-sentence paper. This one is not going to be so little. So our engine is our what part of the sentence, or the not the paragraph, the paper. Jonathan, the topic sentence. What is your paper about? Who is it about? how are you going to introduce? You're going to introduce Martin Luther King Jr. to your reader. So you're going to pretend that I don't know who Martin Luther King Jr. is. I came from Mars, and I have no clue who he is. You have to teach me about Martin Luther King Jr. because I have no clue. So let's pretend you are teaching Daisy about Martin Luther King Jr. She has no idea who he is. Teach her. Topic sentence. What is the middle part of your paper going to include? This is your body. What is that going to include? Frivolous information? M. Facts. You are going to have 3 paragraphs in your body. Each paragraph is going to entail a different fact and event of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. And then, what about the last paragraph? That is going to be our conclusion. What it goes into that paragraph. I hope you like that. Thanks. Bye. No, love, Grayson. That's our sincerely, Jonathan. This isn't a thank you letter. How do we end our paper? It is a conclusion. What goes into a conclusion? What are we doing in our conclusion? Wake up, friends, and track. What do we do and add to our conclusion? Do we add a bunch of facts again and just regurgitate a bunch of information? There is a purpose to the conclusion. What is it? Tessa? Yes, you wrap it up and put a bow on top. So in conclusion, and then you write, how are you going to wrap up your paper? We'll get to that. I think the conclusion can sometimes be the toughest part of the paper because you have to do it in such a way that you wrap it up in a way that is concise. So, yes, the conclusion, we will work on that. So, what is your ideas? I want you to start jotting these down. Your ideas are where you start brainstorming. What do you want to write in your book, in your paper? So to my friends, I did scan this to you. I'm hoping you have it. This is what we're working on right now. So, let's go over, how many of you have this little handy dandy little paper I gave you? Or this little bookmark type thing? I would get that out. It gives you all of the traits for writing your story or your book. Your paper. Maybe someday you'll write a book. So your ideas. That is our light bulb. What do you want to write? Then you have your train, where you organize. Who am I writing to? You're writing to someone who has no idea who Martin Luther King Jr. is. You are teaching. This is a teachable paper. You're teaching Daisy about Martin Luther King Jr. She has no clue who he is. So this is a teachable paper. You are teaching your reader about this topic. Word choice. Now, this paper is not going to you don't have to have really vibrant verbs. Really crazy words. This is more of a solemn or more serious paper. So, sentence fluency, sentences, periods, capital letters, paragraphs. What kind of sentence is the first sentence of the paragraph? Jack.
Indenting.
Indenting. Capitalization. Where do we go write to when we are writing our paper? Do we write in the middle of the paper, or do we go to the stop sign at the red and blue line? All of these things I am going to start grading on much more difficultly, because we are in the second semester and I expect these things to be more habit. And then conventions. Did I capitalize work? So the same fluency conventions are kind of along the same lines. It is the structure of the paragraphs, the sentences, the paper. And I am going to hone in more on the structure, more and more. I want neat grammar, I want capitalization, I want periods, I want spaces between words so I can read it. And quite honestly, you are all doing a much better job at that. I don't have to look at your papers and say, oh, how do I read this? Because you're getting much better at it, so bravo to you. So this is going to require research. That is the purpose of this paper that I gave you. Maybe it looks like some things that you really don't need, but it helps you start thinking. Where was he born? Who is he married to? What is the date? A lot of dates. What is his profession? And more details. Now, if there is not enough space on this, you can get a lined piece of paper and staple this to it. That's, if you want to write more, because this is not a lot of room. So, name of children, details. Accomplishments. That's a very small place for Martin Luther King Jr.'s accomplishments. So my advice to all of you is to get a piece of paper out. This is something to go by, but you don't necessarily have to write in this because it's very small space. It looks nice, but it's not overly helpful as far as giving you enough room to write what you want to write on. So get your book out, and what I want you to do is to fill this out, to start brainstorming, start getting ideas of what you want to write about. You need to write, I do not want paragraph 1, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on this date. 2, he married Coretta Scott. And 3, he had 4 children. That is not the paper I expect. You can include those things in a paragraph, his personal life. But I want some more meat and potatoes in this paper. He has accomplished a lot. He deserves a good paper written about him, correct? Who we talked about yesterday, who influenced him? Owen.
I have a question.
Yes.
What are the names of his father, mother, and did he have any sisters, brothers?
That was in the very beginning of the book. Where is my book? Oh, it's right here. When he talked about his mother, how much he respected. Martin Luther King's father was Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. and Martin Luther King III, we know. I knew it was at the beginning, thank you. So you have to look, friends. So, on page 5, young Martin had a very happy home life. He had an older sister named Willie Christine. He had a younger brother named Alfred. There was a lot of love in the family. Martin's mother was Alberta Williams King. His father was a well-known minister. And remember, he was born Michael, but his father was Michael as well. But remember when Michael, or Martin Luther King Jr., was 5, he changed his name. His father changed his name to Martin Luther King Jr. So that's an interesting fact. So that is your job. And you have a table of contents right here in the very first page. Open up to that page. It gives you who is Martin Luther King Jr. school days, job, riding the bus. So this gives you where to look in the book. Any other questions? M. Name, where are we at, honey? Oh. Oh, maybe a significant aunt or uncle or cousin, somebody else besides his immediate family that played a role. Maybe a favorite dog or cat. Just someone else that may have influenced his life, other than his mom, dad, and siblings, as a child. Jonathan.
What do we do for the professions thing?
What do you do with the what?
The stocks. Professions thing?
What was he? Martin Luther King Jr. was a what? His job. Profession is his job. What did he do? He was a what? He went to college for what? To be a plumber? To be an electrician? To be a teacher? What was his profession? Everyone should have their hands up. I'm ready to wake up. Olivia.
A minister?
Yes. So these are, remember I talked about skimming. You are not going to go through this whole book word for word again. I don't expect that. But I would use the table of contents at the beginning. I would use the timeline at the end. And then find something that you think is useful or you're interested in, skim it. Oh, school days, page 12. What does that say? And then look through it and kind of skim it. Look at dates. The dates are always a good place to skim too because they give you significant events. And that is what you're interested in. So, finish working on this paper. Are there any other questions? So this paper is your brainstorming. Yes, Jonathan?
So do we like write the how Martin Luther King lived or one event?
Both. You talking about the paper?
Yeah.
Right now, you're getting your ideas. Right now, you're not starting writing right now. You're getting ideas and you're forming them and putting them on this paper. That is all you're doing. And while you are doing this research, I am hoping that your ideas will start formulating and you'll be inspired by certain events in Martin Luther King's world or life. So, So a paragraph must entail at least 3 sentences. Okay, each and that, when you get into explaining in the body, like the topic sentence or the paragraph, at least 3. You aren't going to have as many sentences in your topic and your conclusion, but in your body, you should have a lot more than 3 because you're explaining events. So, paragraph 2, 3, and 4 are your body. But events that occurred in his life. There's a lot, and that is where we're going to have to pick and choose. What do you want to write about? We just went. So you have to wait, okay? And then 5 is the conclusion. And much like topic, not as much information, so it only has to be 3 sentences, at least. If you do more, fantastic. So the main thing you're doing right now, you're not, well, we know the topic, it's Martin Luther King Jr. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on the topic. The main thing you need to be working on is the body. What are you going to write about? What do you want to showcase in your paper? So start looking, start researching. This is what you are doing now. Any questions or anything I can help you with? Otherwise,